guys, welcome back to the Can We Get Back to Politics podcast with me and Cece. And today we're going to be talking about DEI and what Trump has done with DEI. And so I think there's a lot to talk about today, but I'm going to start off with talking about what DEI is in general. And obviously I can't say everything about it, and I don't know everything about it, but basically DEI is diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so it was implemented in a lot of workplaces, schools, stuff like that, just to promote diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so here are some things that were like pillar or practical DEI initiative examples. So one is promote pay, equity, and transparency, make hiring more inclusive, establish employee resource groups, provide mentoring opportunities, offer diversity training programs. There's so many things that we could list that, it's basically just to promote diversity, equity, and inclusion within like workplaces, schools, stuff like that. I think diversity, equity, and inclusion are essential components of a thriving workplace or school, and DEI initiatives refer to the specific action an organization takes to promote these values. And these initiatives include strategies, policies, and programs, all of which aim to move you towards a more diverse workforce or schools or wherever it is for equal opportunities and inclusive culture.
So basically where the whole issue with, or what I see as an issue with Trump and DEI is when on March 18th, 2025, and this is according to the White House website, by the way, on March 18th, Trump signed a memorandum removing radical DEI from the Foreign Service, and this triggered a huge issue. People were losing their jobs. People who worked in DEI were losing their jobs. DEI was being taken away from so many places, like schools, workplaces, so many, and so that's a huge problem in and of itself. But one thing a specific story I wanted to talk about is from this article from NPR. Basically, this is an example of the effects of DEI. So basically what happened was a teacher put up a sign in her classroom. I think she was an elementary school teacher that said everyone is welcome here in rainbow letters, with a bunch of hands with different skin colors. And so the principal, she had that for a while, and nothing had ever, it had never been a problem until her principal of the school told her to take it down. And they said, quote, "Teachers aren't allowed to have posters that show their personal or political opinions on things, and this is now seen as a personal opinion." So she was forced to take down the poster, but since she was so upset about this, she asked the district's chief academic officer why this was happening, because she couldn't get answers out of her school. And he said that because of quote, "because of the political environment's ebb and flow, what might not have been considered controversial 3 or 6 or 9 months ago can be considered controversial now," basically implying that Trump's presidency is making the belief that everyone is welcome here controversial, making that statement controversial. And this is crazy, because everyone being welcome in a school should not be considered a political opinion. This is only happening because of Trump's presidency, as the principal said or implied. And then the article goes on to say, quote, "Soon after President Trump returned to office, he signed an executive order titled Ending Radical Indoctrination in K-12 Schooling, which seeks to restrict how schools discuss race, gender, and equity ideology in the classroom." And so as part of enforcing these rules, the education department launched an end to DEI. So that's what we were just talking about, where students and parents can report teachers for teaching lessons about DEI in class. And so, like, I personally believe limiting the discussion of DEI in classrooms will only lead to bad things, such as, like, bullying, because if you think about it, like, this might be considered a stretch, but this is a real situation or a real scenario that happens with many families, I'm sure. Like, I believe that. Like, if the parents of these children are the ones, like, agreeing or, like, going to the school saying, like, DEI shouldn't be discussed, then, like, imagine what, like, racist, homophobic, etc., like, ideologies they're putting into their kids' heads. Like, without learning about stuff like DEI in school, how will these kids turn out, whose parents who have extremely biased, like, opinions or views on certain groups of people? Like, how will these kids, like, think about that stuff? Because the only influence they have without school is their parents. Like, the cycle will just continue until kids are able to see another perspective. And also, teaching kids the idea of, like, everybody being equal is literally solely for positive reinforcement. It is, like, in no way alluding to any political opinions or views. And I think to say that is ridiculous. I feel like there's a difference between saying everyone is equal and showing small kids, like, intense stories about inequality or more controversial topics. Like, this relates to the topic of banning books, which I know we were maybe going to do an episode on, so I'll make this quick, but I just am going to go on a little tangent quickly. But I know that there's a lot of people that believe that we shouldn't expose young kids, like elementary schoolers, the younger side of elementary schoolers, to books about, like quote, controversial topics, which I hate to use that word, but, like, for example, like, LGBTQIA plus ideas, because that will like teach them to feel like you can choose whatever you want to be, or you can just change your gender without feeling like all that, like, stupid stuff that people say. I personally believe it's stupid, like, because that's like teaching kids that you can just pick whatever you want to be, and that's not how it works. But I want to make it clear, I don't believe in that, like, idea. But I feel like I understand, like, it is maybe, like, taking away from, like, people who have experienced real struggles with their identity and, like, have felt so alone and uncomfortable in their own body, like little kids thinking that they can just, like, change their gender. Okay, this is, like, such a, like, this is such a, like, what if example, but I'm just, like, using it because it's something that people say a lot in these arguments. Like, I understand that perspective of it, of, like, it takes away from people who have had, like, real experiences and struggles. However, I don't agree with that, like, you shouldn't expose kids to stuff like that, because I know that, like, young kids aren't always old enough to wrap their heads around such serious topics, but, like, they don't even always need to wrap their head around it. I think it's good that, like, for kids to be exposed to people who are different from them, like, for example, like, gay, trans, etc. people, because it doesn't do any harm to them. Like, it's good to be exposed to people who are different from you. It gives you more of a sense of, like, your community. It gives you a different perspective from the one of your own or the one of your family, whatever. So, like, sorry to go on this, like, tangent, but all this is just to say I think it's ridiculous that this poster had to be taken down, because, like, regardless of your stance on controversial topics, and, like, again, I hate to use this word, the word controversial, because I'm talking about real people whose identities should not be, like, considered controversial or called controversial, and I'm using language, I'm just trying to use the language from the quote because the principal said controversial, but anyway, regardless of your stance on topics like that, reinforcing the idea that everyone is equal is not even touching controversy. It is simply making kids feel included and safe in their own school environment. I think it's crazy for anyone to try to twist something so innocent and positive like that and make it a problem. So I don't know. I just think, like, this whole story was crazy, and it made me really upset to read. Okay, I just want to clarify quickly, because I'm not sure if I, like, finished my thought about this, that when I said that I understand the argument of, like, why kids shouldn't be exposed to stuff like that in schools, like, I think what some people say is, like, it's teaching kids that they can just, like, make up their own gender, or, like, make up whatever and, like, change their gender, like, when they're not actually, like, transgender, they don't have those real feelings. And I'm like saying I personally don't think that that's what will happen, but I'm saying I know some people do feel that way, and I'm just saying I sort of understand that the side of that argument saying that like that takes away from people who have had real experiences and struggles with like their identity, but I don't agree with that. I just want to clarify that I don't agree with that. I just like parts of that argument, I understand where they're coming from. I just want to clarify that.
Yeah, Cece, thank you for saying that, because I have never heard of that before. I never heard of that story, and I think that's insane. I mean, just like you said, like
crazy.
Taking down a poster just because it's and like equality,
advocating for
and
like,
equality should not be like controversial at all.
Yeah.
And so I'm kind of gonna go back a little bit and say just what some things are DEI, and also to make it clear, some of these things were like available and were things before DEI, but a lot of these things are also like required in DEI. So it makes much of a difference. Like, not having it required is obviously different. So some of the things are ramps and sidewalk curb cuts, subtitles and captions, family restrooms.
These are things being taken away.
These are DEI things.
Oh, okay.
These are some of what like DEI is.
Okay.
Family restrooms, changing tables in men's restrooms, which, I mean, obviously is so important to me. Like,
single dads.
Yeah. And, of course...
Or, like, gay dads.
Yeah, or just
like
any dads in general. Like,
yeah.
If you're out and you have your baby with you, like...
Yeah.
You can't go to the women's restroom.
But for people who never have the option.
Breastfeeding, pumping stations and accommodations, floating paid holidays, pay equity and transparency, parental leave, coming back to a job after giving birth or having a child, not having to just accept workplace harassments, work accommodations for variety of disabilities. I mean, there's so many more that I could say, but moving on, I know I'm kind of going with the whole like list thing right now, but I think this is also important to say. So on civilrights.org, it's kind of, there's an article talking about Trump's executive orders about DEI and kind of explaining it. So these are some of the executive orders that Trump's administration, agencies, and staff were told to do from Trump. Terminate diversity, equity, and inclusion offices, positions, and programs in the federal government. Terminate equity-related grants and contracts. Repeal prior executive orders designed to ensure equal opportunity in the workplace, including a decades-old executive order from the Johnson administration that required contractors receiving federal funds to take active steps to prevent discrimination and address barriers to employment opportunities. I mean, I could go on, and there's a bunch in this list, but just off the top three, like, I have such an issue with what he's doing, and I honestly don't understand why he's implementing these things, or why he's, taking away these things, sorry. But diversity, equity, and inclusion, I think, is so important in workplaces, and, also in school, too. Obviously, like, also in private institutions, in anything private schools, private workplace, anything, you cannot take away those, like, it is not required by the law to take away those things in public schools. When he implemented these, like, obviously it's getting taken away, not in private institutions. Well, something actually happened with Georgetown University recently, where I'm reading this off of AmericanMagazine.org, but some of this is also just my thoughts too. But William Trenner, Executive Vice President of Georgetown University and the Dean of the university's law school, issued a firm response on March 6th to a threat from Edward Martin, interim United States Attorney for the District of Columbia, to refuse to hire Georgetown law graduates unless the school eliminates DEI programs, which is insane because Georgetown is a private institution and you can't do that. That's not legally allowed.
Yeah.
And also the fact that they were like threatening all of these innocent kids that are going to this university, paying for this university, like not allowing them to get jobs. And also, by the way, this university right outside of DC, and like I bet they get a lot of kids coming from other law programs into there, and into those workplaces, and I think you're going to need those kids, first of all, and I think that's horrible that you're doing that to them, because these are innocent kids who are just trying to get jobs. They're just getting jobs, and it's getting taken away from them because of our president, or because of this administration, and because they want DEI gone that badly. And Georgetown was like holding their head up high and was like, we're not going to do that. We'll find jobs for all of the kids who were supposed to work for you, or we're going to work for you. And we're not letting you do that to us, because we're a private institution. You can't do that to us, and we're not taking away DEI because they think that's important. Yeah. So I think that's insane, first of all, that they would try and do that.
It's giving dictator.
But I think that it's good that Georgetown was like that. And I'm pretty sure most private institutions that are being threatened with these things for taking away DEI or anything else, usually they're standing high and being like, no, we're not going to do that, because but I think that's just crazy. And it's taking away so many opportunities for kids to get these jobs. And it's not like they're doing anything. It's not like they ever said, we want DEI gone, we want it back, whatever. I mean, it's horrible.
Okay, guys, that's all we have time for today, but we're running out of time, so we're going to do a part 2 of DEI, because we have a lot more to say. So thank you so much for listening to part 1 of our DEI episode, and we hope to see you again for part 2. Thanks for listening. Bye.